Fort Campbell, Kentucky, summer of 2003. Soldiers on routine training start seeing things they can't explain. Lights in the sky, men in suits that don't belong, black cars with no plates. At first it sounded like a rumor, but then one of us vanished, and when he came back he wasn't the same. That's when we were told what we saw was never there. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel, and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. I was 28 and felt older than that. Name's Daniel Carter. Folks call me Danny, sergeant then, squad leader, married. One kid, a daughter with big eyes and a laugh that cut through bad days like a pocket knife. Fort Campbell was home. Late summer of 2003, heat sat on the post like a wet wool blanket. Smelled like cut grass, diesel, hot asphalt, and chow hall grease. The Screaming Eagle signs were faded but proud. The gates never slept. We ran drills, sweated through BDUs, and banged our boots on hatches. Same rhythm as always. You line up, you move, you wait, you hurry up to wait some more. The back 40 ranges baked in the sun. Red dirt that stained our trousers and never washed out. In the afternoons, the Tennessee sky would go weird for a bit, like it wanted to spit rain, then think better of it. The airfield kept its own heartbeat. Helicopters thumped like a chest you could lean into and trust. My squad was a mixed bag like any squad. Good hearts, rough edges, PVT. James Lowell, we called him Jimmy, 19, fresh out of high school and somehow already homesick. Talked about his mom's pot roast like it was a Medal of Honor. He had that baby face that got red when Top smoked him. He tried hard. Too hard sometimes. You could see the want in his shoulders. Specialist Maria Torres, our medic, 25. Sharp eyes. Smiled sideways like she didn't trust the world to keep its deal. She could tape a busted ankle with one hand and call you an idiot with the other. She kept the rest of us honest. Staff Sergeant Green, Marcus, 32. He had that look some guys get after too many long nights and too many short goodbyes. Calm until he wasn't. Old school NCO who held the line by sheer will. He'd been around the block, more than once. Didn't brag, didn't need to. Me, I was the one keeping the cats herded. Writing counseling statements that no one wanted. Checking serial numbers. Making sure boots were bloused and rifles were clean even when nobody looked. You do that long enough and your brain starts humming with lists. It never shuts up. On base, life was small rituals. The commissary with fluorescent lights and carts with one bad wheel. The PX where you pretend you don't want the high-end sunglasses, then buy them anyway and tell your wife it was a sale. Motor pool mornings, waiting on trucks that didn't run, signing them out anyway, then cursing at them until they did. People think the Army runs on discipline. It runs on paperwork, coffee, and lies you tell broken machines. Off base, it was Clarksville and Hopkinsville. Border towns with old brick and new strip malls. Bars that change names every year and never change the smell. Late night diner runs after CQ. Gravy so salty you felt your blood thicken. Waffle House buzzing like a transformer. We'd sit in the booth, hats off, sweating through t-shirts, talking smack about whatever butter bar had tripped over himself at formation. There was a tattoo shop near Gate 4 that stayed open late and took cash without questions. A pawn shop with guitars and lawnmowers stacked like Jenga. The rivers curled around the edges of town, and the kudzu crawled over anything that held still. At night, after lights out, the barracks breathed. You could hear it. A cough across the hall. A laugh into a phone that shouldn't be on. Someone turning a page. Someone praying quiet on the floor by their rack. I wrote letters to my wife on cheap paper. Told my girl to listen to her mom. Drew a little cartoon of our dog in the margin. I kept a photo tucked in my IVA. My girl smiling at a county fair. You need anchors. Little ones. They keep you from drifting into places you can't get out of. Training that summer felt normal. A little mean around the edges. The tempo snapped up and down. We'd drag rucks through the scrub and taste dust. We practice room clearing in plywood buildings with numbers painted on the doors. You say move, someone moves. You say stop, someone stops. Your throat gets ragged from shouting, and your head rings from blanks. Maria gave out ibuprofen like candy. Jimmy lost his earplugs 3 times a week and swore he hadn't. Green stared at map boards like he could will them to tell the truth. The Sabalowski Air Assault School ran their courses down the road. We watched students hoof it across the parade field with ropes and rucks like ants with furniture. The cadre's voices carried, "Move, move, move." The same song everywhere. It was good. In that rough way that makes sense when you're in it. You know the rules. You know the steps. You know you'll be tired, but you won't be alone. That matters. That counted for a lot. If I'd known what we were walking into, I might have done something different. I don't know what. Maybe nothing. The machine turns. You turn with it. That's how it goes. The first weird thing wasn't even ours. It came out of town. Jimmy had this habit of picking up stories. He collected them. He'd get a haircut and come back with a tale from the barber. He'd buy chew at the gas station and come back with the cashier's cousin's ghost story. That kid was a sponge for nonsense, but he believed what people told him. That's the trouble with good hearts. They're open to weather. He came into the team room one afternoon with a styrofoam cup and big eyes. Said, "Sergeant Carter, you ever hear about little goblins out by Hopkinsville?" I told him to grab a broom and sweep that thought into the burn barrel. He kept going anyway. Locals were talking. Something from way back. People out in Kelly shot at little shiny things. Eyes glowing, whole town went nuts. Sheriff got called. It's a thing out there. Green grunted from his desk without looking up. Small towns invent stories so they don't have to think about real monsters. Maria rolled her eyes. It's folklore, lol. Folks get bored. The brain fills in blanks. I told him to mop the floor he'd just swept. Kept it moving. But the words stuck. Goblins. It sounded dumb as hell and still found a place in the back of the skull. Words do that. That week the radio started acting like drunk cousins. Static that crept in when it shouldn't. Not all the time. Just little stutters. You'd key the mic and get a hiss before a voice. Then it cleared. Range control said nothing was wrong. Range control never says anything's wrong. They say, "Copy," like a wall says it. We pulled night guard on the motor pool. Dogs in the housing area behind the fence barked at nothing. Not at us. Not at a jogger. Their noses were up, hackles out, barking at empty air like it had a face. I flipped my flashlight once, thinking I saw a shape by the Connex. Nothing there, just a trick of a light, I figured. I didn't say anything, no reason to. There were blackout exercises that made no sense. Whole buildings dark when they didn't need to be. Someone said it was a drill. Someone else said it was a power hiccup. You learn to stop digging. The dirt just falls back in. After lights out, I'd see the glow of the airfield off the clouds. That was normal. The thump of blades. The red and green wink of nav lights. Except one night something didn't blink right. It was far. Over the training areas. A bright point hung there too steady. Too white. Then it went sideways. Quick. I know the difference between a bird and a trick. This felt like neither. I watched it through the barracks window like a kid staring down a bully and pretending not to. Probably the night stalkers, I told myself. The quiet guys down the road flew things folks didn't talk about. Their birds didn't always wear the usual shoulder patches. Their pilots didn't always smile back. But that light didn't move like any helicopter I'd ever seen. It moved like a thought someone changed mid-sentence. Maria chalked it up to stress. Your eyes get stupid when your brain is fried, she said. She wasn't wrong. Tired soldiers see dumb stuff all the time. But I'd been tired a lot. This felt different. It felt like something watching us get tired and liking it. Jimmy kept bringing little bits from town. Old guy at the diner says he saw a triangle in the sky back in spring. No noise. Just slid like a skate. Another day, lady at the thrift store says the phone in her kitchen rings and nobody's there, just breathing. I told him to let the stories die outside the gate. He nodded. Then told another one the next day. It was like the bass had a buzz you could hear if you tilted your head. Maybe it was the summer. Maybe it was the way the war chewed up the news. Guys came back on leave with quiet eyes. Guys packed bags for deployment with hands that shook when they thought no one was watching. The world bent around that. Maybe we were just bending with it. Still, radios, dogs, Lights, lights, blackouts. And that word from Jimmy's mouth, like a joke you don't laugh at but can't ignore. Goblins. We ran a night training mission out in the back 40. Woods out there hold on to heat and sound. Pine sap and mud and the plastic stink of wet ponchos. The moon was a thumbprint. The mosquitoes acted like we owed them money. Our task was simple. Move to a point, set a perimeter, practice casualty evac under night vision, same script, different night. We loaded up in the trucks that afternoon. The engines coughed out black breath and rattled panels. We tossed water bottles and cussed at straps. Range road dust kicked up behind us like a ghost tail. Green gave the brief at the hood of the lead truck. He was steady. Keep your spacing. Noise discipline when I call it. Watch your steps. We don't need a twisted ankle. Torres, you own the pretend dead. Lowell, you're on my hip unless I say otherwise. Carter, keep your crew tight. If your radio gets cute, don't. We rolled into the trees at last light. The world shifted from color to green. Night vision flickered once, then settled. Crickets sounded like static. My radio hissed, then found its mind again. We moved single file, boots soft on pine needles. Breath slow, the kind of night where you feel the ground thinking under you. We were halfway to the point when the stillness cracked, not with a noise, with a feeling. Green stopped. His hand went up. We froze. I could hear Jimmy swallow behind me. I scanned through the tubes. Nothing. Then something. Off our right, above the tree line, a shape edged into view. Diamond-shaped, like two triangles kissing on the wide ends. No noise. Not a sound. No rotor thump. No jet whine. Just a presence. It hovered too smooth. It held like a hand that doesn't shake. A pale glow along its belly, not bright, like a watch face in a dark room. No one moved. No one breathed. The radio snarled in my ear like a mad cat, and then died. All channels dead. The little hiss that's always there just wasn't. The night went hard and empty. The thing drifted, stopped, drifted again. It didn't wobble. It didn't rock. It moved like the air was solid and had tracks carved into it. Then it did a thing I can't map with words. It went from where it was to where it wasn't, fast and without crossing the space between. 1 second it hung. The next it was 20 degrees left and a hair higher. Then gone. Not a streak. Just not there. Hold, Green whispered. The words shook. I'd never heard that in him. We stood there in the green for a long minute that did not behave like a minute. The crickets came back. The radio coughed to life. I could hear a garble of range control in the distance, like a record underwater. I wanted to call it in. I didn't. My hand stayed off the push to talk like it had a brain of its own. We finished the movement without speaking about it. We did the evac. We dragged a sandbag on a tarp and called it a casualty. We said the words we were supposed to say. It felt like doing lines in a play with a fire smoldering in the ceiling tiles. Back at the trucks, Jimmy's face was pale even under the red lens. Sergeant Carter. Did you? No, I said, too fast. We saw flares. It was nothing, Maria snorted. Flares don't hover, Carter. Then it was the quiet boys, I said. They fly weird toys. Green's jaw clenched. We saw nothing. You get me? We saw nothing. It was lights playing off low clouds. It was misidentification. You put anything else in your mouth and I will pull your tongue out with pliers. He wasn't joking. He wanted it to be that simple. So did I. The debrief the next morning made it official. A captain with a butter bar face and a laminated checklist told us atmospheric conditions can mess with depth perception. Flares. Venus. Stupid crap people haul out when they want you to back away from your own eyes. We signed a paper that said we understood safety procedures. That paper didn't mention the sky. Papers never do. In the smoke pit, guys did what guys do. They laughed at it. They turned it into a joke so it wouldn't turn them into one. Hey Carter, see E.T. last night? Yo, Torres, you gonna give a shot to a little green man? We let them. We fed it. We called it range weirdness. We called it night vision ghosts. We called it tired eyes. Then we went quiet when we were alone with our thoughts. I lay in my rack that night with the photo of my wife on the cinder block. and I watched the ceiling and felt watched back. You notice suits before you admit you notice them. On an army post, everyone wears something that says who they are. Rank, patch, name tape. Even civilians from the contracting side wear badges like cattle tags. These guys didn't. First one I clocked stood by the corner of the admin building near S1. It was hot enough to melt shoe polish, and he wore a black suit like it was fall. Tie straight, collar too tight, no sweat, pale as notebook paper. He watched the motor pool like he was reading it. Hold still long enough and you can feel eyes even with your back turned. I felt his. Later I saw two by the battalion HQ, same cut, same neutral faces. Their hair was too perfect, like a helmet you could take off. No badges, no brown visitor lanyards, no escort, just there. The receptionist avoided looking at them, which told me she'd been told not to see what she was seeing. I told myself they were CID or some department of the Army guys. Plenty of reasons for suits on post. Wrong ones, wrong days, but still. I didn't want to call it what my gut wanted to. Jimmy made it worse like he always did. He came to morning PT baggy-eyed. "Sergeant, they followed me," he said under his breath while we stretched. "Who? Those men. The ones by the motor pool. One of them trailed me yesterday, off post. Where? Motel on the Clarksville side. I was too tired to drive home." He stood across the parking lot and smoked. He looked at me like he wanted me to say something. Then he left. I didn't sleep. I told him to focus on push-ups and keep his mouth shut. Then I spent the run scanning every car that passed us on Fort Campbell Boulevard, which is a dumb thing to do while your lungs are burning, but I did it anyway. We got hit with a random pull from CID for interviews that week. Me and Green. No big deal, I thought. Some equipment turned up missing. Some soldier got stupid near the shop. It happens. The CID office smelled like coffee and air freshener, the way all offices do. The agent wore polo and khakis. He was normal. He asked normal questions. My name, my schedule. Then the questions bent. "Run me through your training on the night of the 15th, he said. I did. He nodded. He asked about safety. He asked about comms. Then he asked, "Anything unusual observed?" That phrase. Too clean. "Define unusual," I said, being a smartass because I was nervous. "Anything you wouldn't call routine," he said, voice flat. The way he read off the page told me the page wanted that question asked. I said we had some radio issues, which is always true. I said we had a soldier stumble and twist an ankle, which was not true but felt safer than the truth. He made a little mark. "No other observations?" "No," I said, like a stone dropping into a well you don't want to measure. Green came out of his own interview looking like a pulled wire. He didn't say much. We got outside and he stopped near the steps. "Shut your mouths," he said, quiet but hard. "We saw nothing. We say nothing. I don't care if your mom asks, or the chaplain asks, or your mirror asks. We saw nothing." Maria watched from where she leaned against the truck. "That bad?" "Worse," he said, and that was it. The suits multiplied. You'd see them walking the sidewalk by brigade like they belonged there. One stood by the fence near the airfield one evening, hands in pockets, not blinking enough. The sun was down, and the runway lights made him look like a cutout. I asked an airfield guy if those suits were his. He said, "Who's what?" and moved on quick. Black vehicles started showing up in places they didn't belong. Suburbans, glossy and clean, no plates on the front, nothing on the back but a rectangle where a plate should be. They'd park by the motor pool idle, then roll away. MPs didn't mess with them. The MPs didn't even seem to see them. Maria tried to take it up the chain in a soft way. She mentioned security concerns to the PA. She framed it as outsiders on post without badges. The PA gave her words that meant nothing. "Thanks for the report, specialist. We're tracking." Tracking what? He didn't say. Jimmy got jumpy. He'd jump at doors slamming, at helicopters passing low, at the phone ringing. He asked me to swap CQ so he didn't have to sit by himself at night. I did. I didn't tell him I didn't want him alone either. At chow I felt someone behind me in line and turned. A man in a suit. Not CID. Not anything. Just there. Close enough to smell nothing. He smiled like he'd practiced it in a mirror. It didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were a flat color you could fall into and not climb out of. He said nothing. I stepped aside. He took a tray. He didn't eat. We told ourselves it was stress. We told ourselves it was the war's shadow reaching even here. We told ourselves what professionals tell themselves when their tools don't fit the job. But it felt like being measured. We were being weighed and cut into pieces on a board we couldn't see. It happened near the airfield at dusk. The sky was purple and weird, the way it gets when humidity has opinions. Green and I were walking back from a meeting that had not needed to be a meeting. Our boots chewed gravel. The world smelled like jet fuel and cut grass. They stepped out of the quiet like the quiet had a door. Two men, black suits, same face shapes, same too smooth skin, same stiff shoulders. If you've ever seen a mannequin after hours, that's the vibe. They weren't big, they felt big anyway. Staff Sergeant Green. Sergeant Carter, the one on the left, said. His voice wasn't right. It was like a recording of a voice, a hair-off human. The cadence missed the beats where people breathe. Every hair on my arm stood up. The little soldier in the back of my head who counts exits and checks ranges started yelling, but my boots stayed stuck. We need a moment of your time, the other one said. He didn't ask. He told. Green squared his shoulders, defaulting to that old muscle memory. Show me your credentials. They both smiled. Same degree. Same teeth. Not necessary, the first one said. What you saw was never there. My mouth went dry. We didn't see anything, I said out of habit. Correct, he said. For your safety, forget it. For our safety, Green said, letting the words bite. You come onto my post and tell me what's safe like I don't. The first one stepped a half-inch closer without moving his feet. It looked like a camera jump cut. My stomach flipped. Daniel, he said. My first name fell out of his mouth like a stone that had learned to talk. Your wife would agree with us. She worries. You should be careful. Your daughter is learning to ride her bicycle. You don't want to miss that. I felt something cold move through my chest. I hadn't told the soul about the bike. We bought it last week. It was pink with little streamers on the handlebars. I hadn't even told Maria. I swallowed once, twice, and felt my pulse in my tongue. Green stepped to stand half in front of me. His voice dropped. Back up. The other one turned his head like it was on a bearing. James Lowell, he said, like reading a tag none of us could see. 19. Homesick, he does not sleep well. He should not be out at night alone. I took a step I didn't mean to. What do you want from us? Compliance, the first one said. The craft in the training area is not your concern. The lights are not your concern. The sound on your radio is not your concern. Stand down. This is not a request. Who are you? Green said. Who do you work for? The smile bent. We work for continuity, he said. You work for discipline. We work for continuity. Do your job and do not attempt ours. They smelled like nothing. Not cologne, not sweat, not paper, nothing. The breeze pushed grass and didn't push their jackets. The one in front of me dipped his head the smallest amount. You are being monitored for your safety, he said. Make good choices. Then they were gone. They didn't turn. They didn't walk. One blink and space was empty. We stood there with the sound of a helicopter passing on the far side of the field like the world had started up again after a pause. Green sucked air through his teeth. Okay, he said, like he'd just been handed a live grenade with the pin out. Okay, we didn't go to the MPs. We didn't go to anyone. Who would we tell? Who would we be after we told it? That night, Jimmy didn't report to final formation. I found him in his bunk, sitting on the edge, hands wrapped around his own elbows like he was trying to hold himself in one piece. His eyes were full of water, but he wasn't crying. He was shaking like a pole with bees in it. Sergeant, he said, they were in my room. What? I woke up and couldn't move. The room was cold like a freezer. A shadow leaned over me. Not a person, not like them. Smaller. Eyes like wet stones catching a light. It touched my forehead, and I felt like I was falling but not down. I don't know how long it lasted. Then I could move. My radio turned on by itself and hissed at me with no one talking. I checked the room like a dumb man checking under a bed for a war. Nothing defined. The air smelled normal and the walls were just walls. His sheets were damp with sweat. Maria came in with her aid bag. She checked Timmy's pulse. She checked his pupils. "You had sleep paralysis," she said, voice even. "It happens. Your brain wakes up before your body. You see things. It's ugly, but it's real." Jimmy nodded like he believed her. Then he did not stop shaking. I pulled the chair over and sat with him until the shaking turned into tired. I stayed until he slept again. I don't know who I was more afraid for, him or me. I lay awake after and watched the door. I didn't sleep at all. Jimmy vanished the next day. Not gone forever. Just gone long enough to rupture something in us that didn't grow back right. He was on detail clearing brush near the range road. He told the specialist in charge he needed to take a leak. He stepped into the tree line. He did not step back out. We combed the edge. We called his name. Range control sent a truck. MP showed. Someone put a helicopter in the air. Maria moved faster than anyone, calling out his name and cursing him without air between the words. Green's face went stone. I felt like I was chewing glass. 24 hours later, they found him wandering on the far side of the training area, walking slow with his hands at his sides, like a kid trying not to step on cracks. He was missing his watch. His boots were clean when they shouldn't have been. His mouth tasted like copper, he said. He couldn't tell anyone where he'd been. He couldn't tell me what he'd seen. "Do you remember anything?" I asked gently. He swallowed. "A room that wasn't a room," he said. "A hum like a refrigerator in a house with no walls. Someone touching my shoulder with hands that were not hands, more like tongs covered in soft rubber. A bright light that didn't hurt. A voice in my head that wasn't words." He shook. "Then trees. And I was thirsty. CID took him for a few hours. Brought him back without charges and with eyes like chipped glass. They tagged him for mental health and told me to monitor him. They told me to file a mishap report about losing a soldier on detail. They did not tell me how to fill the part of my report that asked for cause." My wife got a call that night. "House phone." She answered. Silence. Then a mechanical voice said my name. Not a question. Not her name. Just my name. Just my name. Twice. Then a click. She told me the next morning. Her voice was thin. "They know about us," she said. "They know where we live." "I'll talk to the phone company," I said, useless as hell. Marie started keeping a notebook. She wrote dates, times, who saw what. She listed radio static, suit sightings, helicopters without tail numbers, odd lights, blackouts, dogs barking toward empty fields. She documented. It made her feel like she was making a fence you could lean on. 2 days later, 3 pages were gone. Clean tear, she didn't tear them. She kept doing inventory. She started wearing the notebook like a second skin, tucked under her blouse. She still found notes moved from where she left them. She stopped telling me each time because she knew what my face would do. Green's edges frayed. He started sleeping with his rifle racked near his bed when he didn't need to. He checked the door twice, then a third time. Then he got up again and checked it a fourth time. He carried himself like someone had drawn a sight picture on his back. He told me he heard voices in the wall vents at night, not words, just tuned-in tones, the kind a radio makes when it's between stations and trying to pick one. He said it made his fillings hum. He said, "They're in the walls, with teeth grinding," and I wanted to tell him that's not how anything works. I didn't, because I'd started hearing it too. We weren't a squad anymore. We were a collection of nerves walking around in boots, trying to pretend we were human beings. We snapped at each other. We shut down. We joked too hard. We got quiet too fast. Jimmy would stare at a cup and you had to put a hand on his shoulder to bring him back to a room he could name. Maria was on the phone with her sister more than usual, talking about anything except the thing. Green would disappear for an hour and show up smelling like the woods, dirt on his knees like he'd been digging. I started sleeping in shifts in my own home. My wife asked me what was wrong. I told her nothing. She looked at me like I'd thrown a plate on the floor and refused to see the pieces. A black Suburban parked on our street for a while. Not long. Enough. I stepped outside and stood on the curb. I crossed my arms. I tried to look bigger than I am. The windows were dark. I could see myself in the paint. I couldn't see who watched back. After a few minutes, the engine started and it pulled away without even a courtesy glance. It left the smell of clean exhaust like a hospital scent. At PT, fewer jokes. At chow, more silence. At night, dark felt crowded. The base was still the base. Work still made its demands. Forms still needed boxes filled. Boots still needed blousing. It all kept going like a machine that hadn't realized one of its gears was missing a tooth. And under it all, something waited. Patient, confident, like it had time and we did not. Like it had all the maps. The alert hit after midnight. Sirens in the hallway. Knock on the doors. You're up. Move. No explanation, just a location. A sector number. An order to get to trucks and go. My stomach had a cold stone in it before I even saw the map. The grid square was familiar. Same stretch of the back 40 where the diamond had hovered. We rolled out with too little talking. Engines loud. Headlights off until the last second. Night vision down. The world in green again. The trucks chewed ruts. The radio was a wall of clipped voices. Too many, then too few. It felt like half the battalion was moving and no one wanted to say what for. We dismounted by the old tree line that used to be a fence line. The ground there holds history. You can feel the weight of whatever people did on it before your time. It pushes through your boots like a bad memory. Black helicopters passed overhead, not our usual birds. Too slick, no visible markings. The sound of their blades felt wrong in my bones, like each thump arrived a split second late. Their nav lights were dim, almost pretend. They circled wide like sharks, deciding if we were food. Positions, Green said. His voice had that battlefield calm like a blade edge. We moved into the trees. Maria checked her bag straps like a ritual. Jimmy walked on my hip like I'd told him months back. His breathing was steady, his hands were not. Down in the low ground, a glow started. Not fire, not flares. A ceilingless, roomless kind of light. We crouched, we watched. The craft settled again, same diamond. Same smooth, wrong movement. This time, it came down into the clearing like it belonged there. It didn't bend branches, it didn't stir dust. It just was. You ever pull saran wrap across a bowl and see it catch the rim in one perfect stretch? That's how the air looked around it. A hatch opened that wasn't a hatch. A gap appeared that shouldn't have. Shapes moved. Small, not children, not grown. They had limbs, but not the way we think of them. Thin and jointed wrong, heads too big. Faces too, blank. Eyes like wet stone, reflecting our night vision back at us as coins of light. They walked like they were on a ship in heavy sea, except the sea was our world and they were steady and we weren't. Holy, Jimmy started. I put a hand on his shoulder and squeezed until my knuckles ached. The men in black arrived as if they'd been there already and we finally noticed. 2, then 4, then 4, then more. They stepped from the edges of the clearing in lines that made no noise. They didn't run. They didn't need to. They formed a screen between us and the craft like they practiced it. One looked back at us. His face caught a sliver of light. It didn't catch anything else. Stand down, a voice said from everywhere and nowhere. Not a radio, not a speaker. The words landed in my head like a firm hand. Stand down and remain quiet. Green did not. He stood. A decision you could feel like weight shifting under the squad. He put his rifle to low ready. Identify yourselves, he said, because his bones were made of rules even when the sky forgot them. Stand down, the voice said. This is not your mission. Maria grabbed my sleeve. Danny, she whispered. Don't. But the line had already snapped inside Green. He raised the barrel a hair. He didn't aim at a person, he aimed past them, a warning. He squeezed off one round into the dirt near their shoes. A crack that should have echoed. It didn't. The sound got swallowed by the light. Then everything happened at once. Green fell like his strings had been cut. Not hit, not shot, just off. He hit the ground hard and rolled to his side, eyes open and seeing nothing. His chest heaved. His hands scrambled for the rifle like he didn't know what it was. Maria moved to him without thinking, on all fours, bag open. I covered, expecting bullets. None came. The small shapes turned their heads toward the sound, slow and together, like flowers following a sun we couldn't see. One lifted a hand, if it was a hand. The hair on my arms rose as if the air had turned to static. Men in black closed ranks. Two stepped forward, palms out like you'd calm a dog. "Remain still," one said aloud this time. The voice, a hair closer to human but not enough. "There will be no harm if you remain still." Jimmy stood up without meaning to. His feet drew him, like they weren't his. He stepped into the edge of the clearing. I grabbed his sleeve. He kept going. I threw my weight into him. He stopped. He looked at me, eyes glassy. "I have to," he said. And he meant it in the bone sense, not the thought sense. It scared me worse than the craft. "Lowell," I said, hard. "Look at me." He looked. The spell slipped. He breathed fast and looked like a kid again, lost in a city. A beam. No, not a beam. A suggestion of a path, stretched from the craft to the ground at their feet. The little ones walked it without touching it. I could not parse how that worked. I stopped trying. One of the suited men stepped near me. His mouth moved and the noise that came out made my molars ache. Then, clearer, "You will sign documents in the morning. You will adhere to them." "Go to hell," I said, "because sometimes you say a thing you know changes nothing and you say it anyway." "We are trying to prevent that," he said, and I hated that it almost sounded like a joke a human would try. The craft did a motion that made no sense, like it rotated around an axis that isn't in our math. The small ones filed back through the gap that wasn't a gap. The glow tightened, then faded like someone turning down a dimmer switch in a room we weren't allowed to enter. The craft did the same wrong jump from there to not there, and left the clearing empty except for crushed grass that uncrushed itself as we watched. The black helicopter circled once more and broke in two directions, also wrong, because they made sound that seemed late to their own passing. The men in black stood for a long breath, as if waiting for someone to clap. No one did. "Stand down," the voice said one more time, softer. Then the suits were not there. We hauled Green up. He was breathing fast and shallow, like he'd been sprinting. He looked around like he'd never seen trees. "What happened?" he asked, voice small. "Did I fall?" "You're okay," Maria lied like a professional. "You got dizzy. Sit." We moved back to the trucks as if that was a sensible thing to do with our legs. The radio found itself again. Range control came back with normal words. MPs logged a drill. Someone from staff met us at the gate with folders and pens and very careful faces. We signed papers in a tent with poor lighting. "Classified training," the page said in government font. "You will not discuss under penalty of." It listed the penalties like a menu. We signed because not signing wasn't on the table. We were told we'd participated in an exercise designed to test our reactions to ambiguous stimuli. Fancy way of saying they'd messed with us to see what broke. I watched an officer say that and wondered if he believed his mouth. By morning, the clearing looked like any other low spot in a stand of pines. The crushed grass had decided it was never crushed. The sky was summer blue like a smile with too many teeth. We went back to work. Because that's what you do. You go back to work. It unraveled slow after that, the way sweaters do when you catch a nail and don't notice for a week. The squad scattered. Not dramatic, just one decision at a time. Jimmy got flagged for mental health. The doc wrote phrases that look like help and feel like wind. Anxiety, dissociative episodes, sleep disturbance. He got a discharge that called itself honorable and felt like a shrug. I helped him pack his duffel on a gray morning that smelled like rain. He hugged me in the parking lot and said, "I think they still come when I sleep." I told him to get help at the VA. He nodded like I'd said the weather. Green put in for a transfer and got one faster than transfers usually go. One day, he was ours. 2 weeks later, he was gone. Rumor said he landed in a unit where people didn't ask the kind of questions he asks. He left his coffee mug in the team room. It had a chip on the rim where it hit a desk in some long-forgotten argument. I kept meaning to throw it out. I didn't. It sat there like a rock. Maria lasted longer. She kept the notebook, then stopped. She got quiet around the edges in a way I didn't like. One afternoon, she walked into my office, closed the door, and said, "I'm out." She'd put in her paperwork. Family reasons, she wrote. I asked if she wanted to talk. She looked at me and said, if I talk, I have to decide which parts were real, and I don't know how to do that without breaking something I need. She hugged me quick and left. I watched her walk across the parade field toward a life with different ghosts. I stayed, because I didn't know what else to do. Because the Army had been home longer than any other home. Because I had a wife and a kid and a mortgage on a house with walls that sometimes hummed at night when the air conditioner kicked in, and I needed those walls to be ours, not theirs. The dream started. Not every night. Enough. I'd wake with my face wet and my hands clenched like I'd been trying to hold on to something slick. My wife said I talked in my sleep. She said I said, black eyes in the woods, and don't look, and sometimes just no, over and over until it wasn't a word anymore. I didn't tell her about the car. She saw it anyway. A black sedan parked across from our house one evening as the sun slid behind the trees. It had the windows so dark you see yourself better than whoever sits inside. It sat there, engine off, quiet like a suggestion. My girl rode her pink bike in the driveway and rang the little bell. The sound cut the tension like a joke you need even when it's bad. I stood on the porch with my hands in my pockets. The car stayed. My wife stood beside me. She didn't take my hand. We didn't wave. The porch light clicked on by itself when the sun dropped. The car pulled away without its lights, rolled down the street, then lit up at the corner and turned. Gone. I wanted to chase it in our old truck. I wanted to run. I did neither. I stood there and watched the spot where it had been until the mosquitoes found me. Every so often I see suits on post even now. Not the same faces. Faces are masks anyway. They stand where they shouldn't and don't carry what they should, and nobody tells them to leave. I tell myself they're CID or DA civilians. I tell myself that because I like my life with corners I can dust and windows I can close. Sometimes I drive out past the ranges on a Sunday when the gates are open and the signs say the roads are safe. I park by the old fence line and sit with the engine off and listen. The pines whisper their forever whisper. The cicadas work their one job with all they've got. The airfield thumps in the distance like a heart you can count on. The clearing looks like any other. It doesn't pull at the eyes the way it did. It's just grass. That's what I tell myself. When the radio in the truck hisses between stations, I turn the knob fast. When the house phone rings and no one speaks, I say hello twice, then hang up with care like a stupid ritual might protect us. When a helicopter passes overhead and the sound comes late, I watch it until the sound lines up right. Most days it does. I keep the papers we signed in a folder with tax returns and warranty cards. Sometimes I take them out and look at the words. Classified training, ambiguous stimuli, non-disclosure. The signatures look like mine and Green's and Maria's, and that makes it real in a bureaucratic way that shouldn't matter and does. What we saw, what we didn't, what we were told we saw, what we were told we didn't. It all braids into a rope that holds or strangles depending on the day. If you're asking me what happened, I'll tell you this, like a soldier around a fire, honest as I can be after years. The world isn't one world. It's a stack of thin things laid over each other. Most days you only see the top one because it's easier to live that way. Now and then a seam opens. Now and then something not us walks through. There are men, or things that wear men-like clothes, who make sure those seams get zipped quick. Maybe they're protecting us. Maybe they're protecting the seam. Maybe they're protecting something that isn't either. We were regular people doing a job. We got in the way of a seam. We looked too long. It looked back. Then some folks in black told us to forget and tried real hard to make it stick. I try to be a good husband and a good dad and a decent NCO. I mow the lawn. I show up for the people who count on me. I tell new soldiers stupid stories that make them laugh because laughing is medicine the Army doesn't issue enough of. I teach them to keep their heads down when it matters and up when it matters more. And sometimes, after lights out, I lie awake and watch the ceiling. I listen for the radio hiss in the vent. I wait for the hum that isn't the air conditioner. I tell myself there's nothing there. That's what the papers want me to say. That's what the suits wanted. Most nights it works. Every once in a while the dark feels crowded. I close my eyes and I see a diamond hanging over pines like a thought with weight. I see small figures with eyes like wet stone. I see faces too smooth, voices a hair off human, suits that don't sweat. I hear a word in my head that means stand down and sounds like a command I'll be obeying even when I'm gone. We were told it was never there, but I was there. I was there,